everyone. Thank you so much for attending this session. My name is Graciela Martinez. I'm from El Salvador. I'm the user group leader here for Power Platform. And today I'll be talking about how to use Power Automate and Office scripts to automate some Excel tasks, specifically file processing tasks that I think are a very common use case or something that we do in our day-to-day if we are, for example, in a finance team or things like that. I think this can be really useful to solve some of those manual tasks that we may be performing in our day-to-day. So let's start by talking about the use case, and then we are going to talk about how to combine the Office scripts, and we're going to define Office scripts as well a bit later, but let's start with what's the use case so we can get some context about what we are going to be doing. So let's suppose that we receive a report twice a week for some inventory stock. And these are automatic reports that we get from the system. And we perform some actions on this file. This is an example of a file that we receive. I think this is a pretty common format in which we receive automated reports, which is just plain Excel file, no tables with some IDs and some columns and all of that. So in this case, we have 5 columns with different stock products and the stock for each product, the category, and the country of the warehouse. So this is what we receive from the system, and we also receive some code in the subject of the email, and the code refers to the to the warehouse that we are working with. So what we are going to assume today is that we perform some transformations to this file, which in this case, it would be a calculated column based on today's date. So that would be something like going to the Excel file, opening it, and then, for example, using the text function, and then just say that we are going to work with today. And then, hold on, let me change the language of my keyboard and just adding, for example, that we are going to be working with day, month, and year. And then we close parentheses. And then we drag it all the way to the bottom for the date. And then we just add the column name. And then we are going to delete one column. That's the ID because we are not going to use it. And then we are going to rename the columns. In this case, the next thing we do, because you can see they're in Spanish, and we are the use case is that we are going to upload this Excel file into our accounting system. So it has some preset column names. So in this case, it would be product, and then category, quantity, then from, and then the date. So these are the 5 columns that we are going to need. And finally, we want to convert this into CSV format so we can upload it into our accounting system. So in this case, it would be something like going to File, Save As, and then just save the format to CSV. So once we have it in CSV, we are ready to upload it into our accounting system. And this is not something that would take hours of work daily, but if you're receiving this a couple times a week, it's something that can be definitely saving you a couple of minutes every day. So we are going to learn how to do all of this automatically from Power Automate and Office scripts. And this could definitely be done using a macro. You could, for example, download the file and then create a macro that does everything that we just did. And it would work almost the same. The difference is that you would have to download the file and run the macro, quote unquote, manually, instead of just having it run in the background. So we're going to see how to do it, all of it, without us. We could be drinking a coffee while we get the report, and the report will automatically get transformed. So for that, we are going to use what I've been talking about, which are the Office scripts. And the Office scripts can be defined as something similar to macros that can run online, because if you have a file that is macro enabled and it has macros in it, you can just you can't work on them online. You cannot run macros or things that are created with Visual Basic online. You have to download the file or open it in your desktop to be able to run it. So in this case, we're going to be working with these Office scripts that are almost like macros that can run online. and they can also run on desktop as well, similarly to what we would do with an Excel macro. And the cool thing about Office scripts is that they can be connected with other Office 365 tools, such as SharePoint and Power Automate, as we are going to be looking at in a moment. So they can run a lot of automations and connect with other systems and things like that to create pretty cool things that can save you some time. And these Office scripts are written in TypeScript. It may sound complicated, but there's a lot of documentation on TypeScript. If there's something that you don't know how to do, you can just Google it or ask ChatGPT, for example, and it can help you, because TypeScript is like a derived language of programming from JavaScript. So there's plenty of documentation. And if you want to know, for example, how to loop something or how to set a variable and things like that, there's a lot of places where you can find information. And for us to start working with this automation, we have to do two things, because we have been talking about Power Automate and we have been talking about Office scripts. So in this case, we can combine the two of them, and we have to do two things. One thing is creating the actual automation that will transform the Excel file. But remember that we are saying that all of these will be received from an email, and it has to be processed and for example, saved somewhere. So it has to do with Outlook, it has to do with SharePoint. So for us to be able to connect all those tools, we are going to use Power Automate, which is the Microsoft tool for process automation. And it's pretty much what is going to work as an orchestrator for us to be able to to get the file from the email and then get the information from the Excel file, transform it, and then save it into SharePoint as a CSV file. So we are going to be combining these two. So we need to, number one, create an Office script. And number two, we're going to work in creating a Power Automate workflow. So for us to create the Office script, we're going to add a couple of actions in the script. And then for us to work on the workflow, we are also going to add a couple of actions. But let's stay for now with the Office script. So for now, we are going to just open our browser. And here you can see I am in a SharePoint site. It doesn't have anything special. It's just a regular SharePoint site. And here I will just create a folder. And I will call it inventory files, and then I'm going to add today's date, and then I'm going to hit on create. And then in the new folder, I will just create a new Excel workbook. And once you open the Excel workbook online, you will see this tab that is called Automate. And this is where you can create Office scripts. And also you can see this in the desktop. You can see if I open this file, I also see my Automate tab. So now you can run these scripts both in desktop and online. For some reason, I prefer to create them online, but I don't think there's any difference between creating them in online or on your desktop. It's really important that you know that if you don't see this Automate tab, it may be because you don't have the right license to work with Office scripts. The minimum license that you need is the business standard, the one that has desktop apps. If you only have online apps, most likely you're not going to see this Automate tab. But if you have the one that starts from around 12 USD, anything above that will give you this Automate option. And it's really important that your account has OneDrive enabled. And even more important, that the admin hasn't disabled this option, because this is something that can be disabled by admins. So if your admin has disabled it, you will also not see it. But in most of the cases of people I've talked to, they usually see these tabs. So hopefully, if someone wants to try this out, they will also be able to see the Automate tab. But there are some very specific scenarios in which you may not see it. And for us to start, if we are familiar with macros, we know that we can record macros and we can work with these macros in the desktop, and we can just start recording, and it's going to try to find everything that we have that we're doing and just put it into code. So thankfully, it's pretty similar when we're working with Office scripts, because we can do something pretty similar, which is just recording the actions and then just have seen the code in the actual document. So for now, I'm going to take this file and upload it to my SharePoint folder. And it's open. And I'm going to close this sample one that I opened. And here we just go to Automate. And then there's a section that is called New Script. It's the very first option. And then we can either create in the code editor or we can create from recording. We could also ask a tool like ChatGPT to help us creating scripts. To be honest, I have tried it and it's not great. So I think for now, the best option is to start with creating from recording because it really gives you a lot of the base code that we need. You were going to see how after the recording, we're just going to make a few changes to this automation and it's going to be ready to go. So let's click here on create from recording. And yeah, now it says it's recording. So now we can just start performing the actions that we need. We know that one of the things we need to do is to delete column A. So that's the first thing that we can do. So we can just go ahead and do it like we would do it in a regular manual step. So let's just delete. And we can see here on the right panel, there is this action that says delete A and A. So we can just remove it from there. And then the next thing we're going to do is we are going to convert this range because you can see it's a flat range and we need it to be a table. We're going to see why a bit later. And we're going to convert it to a table. So I will go to the insert. I guess we could also do control. Well, no, it doesn't work in my in the web browser, but we can just go to table and it's going to add a new table. There we go. And you can see as well the code was added on the right of the panel because the table is being created. Then the next thing that we do is we rename the table to inventory. So let's go to table design and let's rename. And then, well, we already removed the ID column. And the next thing we are going to do is we are going to add a new column for the date, as we were looking at when we were working on this, on the manual step, when we were looking at step by step. So here I will just go ahead and add my new function, and I will start writing text, and then I will use, today's date. And then we are going to return it in day, month, and then year. And then close my double quotes and close parentheses. And you can see that it automatically fills out all my rows. So I don't have to worry about, at least for now, how many rows we have. And then I will just change this column 1 to date. And there's something else that we have to do, which is renaming the columns, but we are going to see how to do that from Power Automate, so we're not going to record that step just yet. But on the right side, we can see everything that we need. So now I can stop the recording of my Office script, and I'm going to see all the code. You can see at first, I see like all the different steps here, and I can just change the name to something like inventory files transformation. And I will just add today's date so I don't forget. That's what we're working on. And you can see here, it's showing me where it's saving. So what I usually do, I just open on a new tab where the script is being saved. And we're going to take that script from here later and use it from SharePoint because it's a little bit better to use it from SharePoint. So now we have it and we can see the different steps. You can see that it lets us edit some of the steps, but I don't think this is great to edit from here. So it's just better to go ahead and edit from the actual code. And something that I really like about Office scripts is how it adds some comments. Of course, they are quite generic comments because, they are added automatically, but you can understand what it's trying to do in each of the steps. So you can see in line 3, it says it's going to delete range A. And then in 5, it says I'm going to add a table. And then on row 7, it says we're renaming. So it's pretty cool how it does that. And then finally, the last thing we do is we just add the formula to today's date. And if I go ahead, for example, and I upload another of my files, which is, I have 3 samples. So if I open that one, we are going to open the new one, and I will go to the Automate tab, and then here you can see my script. It's here, and then I will go to the top, and I will just click on Run. Once I click on Run, you can see it will automatically perform everything that we did previously, which was deleting the column, adding the date column, and adding everything as a table. So we are almost ready with the Office script, but there's one small detail, which is that my first file had like almost 800 rows. And then this one has much more than that. It has almost 900. But you can see that my table still ends in rows 769 because my Office script has like hard-coded this part where it says everything from A1 to D700, you need to create a table based on that. So in this case, we can see that it's hard-coded, and regardless of the file, if it has 500 rows, if it has 1,000 or 900, for now, it's going to always do it in this specific range. So what we need to do is we just need to make a small update for this to be dynamic. And as I was explaining at the beginning, there is a lot of documentation on Office scripts, or I'm not sure if a lot is the right word, but there's some documentation, and you can always Google your question. For example, in this case, there's one specific function that is called get surrounding region. So it understands what's the region that we are using around the table, so we can make it dynamic. So in this case, let me open this. So I would just Google get surrounding region, and then Office script. And we're gonna see how, both Google AI and some documentation from Microsoft, both of them will kind of give us some of the information that we need to use. And we can see that we pretty much need to set a range and then get what's the surrounding region. If we also see the example that Microsoft shows here, it's pretty similar as well. So the only change we need to do on this Office script is almost as if we go, for example, to column A1, and in our keyboard, if we do Control A, it's going to recognize all the space that is being used. So that's what the surrounding region thing does. So in this case, we are going to get range A1, and then we are going to use this function get surrounding region. So let's put a comma, a dot here, no, sorry, here after the parentheses, and then get surrounding region. Then let's save the script, and I will upload a copy of this same file. I will upload here, and now after this small change, we are going to see how it will dynamically recognize the number of rows and just run the script for all the almost 900 rows that we have in our file. So if I go to Automate and then Inventory Files Transformations, and then Run, if I go all the way to the bottom, now we see it correctly identifies dynamic lines in our file. So with a small change, we made something that impacts a lot the automation and improves it a lot. And again, we just did it with some Googling, and then everything else, we just did it with the base code that the Office script gave us. So after this is ready, pretty much the first part of our automation is complete. And now we go to the second part, which is creating a Power Automate workflow that will connect everything. Remember that we have a file that comes through email, then we have the Excel document that we process, and then we need a CSV that is the output. The output, it could be, we save it in a SharePoint site, or we can send it through email. That depends on whatever we want to do. In this case, what we're going to do is we're going to save it in SharePoint. So for that, we are going to just go to the Power Automate portal. And to go to the portal, we can go from any of the Office apps in the top left corner, and Power Automate is going to be there. And it's going to just open the portal for us. In this case, I already have it open. And I will go to my flows. And from my flows, I can start a new flow and an automated cloud flow, because there are different type of flows in Power Automate. In this case, we want this automation to happen whenever we have an email. That means that an email has to happen for us to be able to run the automation. So we need an event to happen to be able to run it. And that's why we are doing an automated cloud flow, because automated cloud flows are based on events. So we go to automated cloud flow. And here, let's look for email. So in this case, we just need to be really careful that we use Office 365 Outlook and not Outlook.com, because Outlook itself is just a regular Hotmail account or live accounts. If we are working with a work account or a school account, we need to use Office 365 account. So we're going to use when our email arrives from the Office 365 Outlook connector. And then here we're going to call it process inventory files. And then let's add the date. So we know that everything that has this date is what we have been working with today. So I go ahead and create. And the first thing it's going to ask me is which inbox I want to connect it to. In this case, it connected automatically, but depending on the account that you're working with. So in this case, this is my account. But if we want to use a different account or different credentials, we can just click on change connection, and it's going to add the connection here. So I will just cancel. And here we need to fill out some information. One thing that I do a lot is just filtering which kind of emails we want to process, because, we receive many documents. So in this case, we can see that the file will always set a specific keyword. In this case, it's in Spanish. It says reporte de existencias, which means stock report. So in this case, we know that this keyword or this keyword will always, or this key sentence will always be included in the files that we need to process for this specific automation. So for that, we can use the subject filter section and also the include attachments and only with attachments. We're going to need those three parameters. And the subject filter, we need to make sure to include this keyword that says reporte de existencia. So we're just going to write it. And then only with attachments, we're going to say yes, because if the attachment is not present, we really don't need the automation to run. And include attachments, I will say yes, because we want to get the file content to later save it and to later process it and to later convert it to CSV. So here there was a typo. So now we have include attachments, subject filter, and only with attachments. And now we can go ahead and perform all the other things that we were talking about, which is number one, create the file in SharePoint. So let's do that first. So for that, we can just add a new action in Power Automate, and I will look for SharePoint. And then here in SharePoint, let's look for the action that is called create file. This one here. And I will go ahead and select the SharePoint site where I want to save the information. In this case, I have this SharePoint SharePoint site that is called Bootcamp Demos. So here, and then the folder path, whatever we want to save the file that we are getting. In this case, shared documents, and then inventory files, and then, yeah, it's there. And then inventory files, and let's select here. And in the file name, I usually like a lot to use one function that is called GUID, because it generates a string of a lot of characters with numbers and characters and dashes. So we can just use that because it's random, and that way we'll make sure it will not have any duplicate information. But if not, we can also, for example, just save today's date or something like that. And then we are going to add, it needs to be saved with the XCLSX extension. And finally, for the file content, we are going to use the file content that comes from the previous step in Power Automate, because Power Automate works based on inputs and outputs. So you remember in this case, previously we were setting up what's the filter we want in the subject, if we want attachments. So we are giving it inputs, but this same action or this same trigger or the same event is giving us back some information. Some of the information that it gives us back is who sent the email, what's the body of the email, and also so what are the attachments. So that's the information that we are using here. As you can see, if I click on this small lightning icon, if I click here, then you can see I can see all the information from the email. So in this case, it will be the attachment content. So I can just click on it, and automatically Power Automate is going to grab this action inside for each action, because attachments can be one or many. So that's what it means. It means that Power Automate is recognizing that we can have one or more attachments in one single file, and we want to process everything that comes in the attachment. And okay, so now we have created this. And then the second thing would be transforming this file. So for us to transform the file, remember that we created this small script. So we need to call this script from Power Automate, because remember, scripts are great, so we can connect between different tools. So the next thing that we are going to do is just calling the script. So there's a specific action for that. And if I look for the word script, you can see we have two options. One that only says run script, one that says run script from SharePoint library. As you remember, when I was creating the script, it saved I changed the name. And when I was changing the name, I could see where the script was being saved. And I can also see it here. I can see that by default, everything is saved in my account. So if I open this, I will see the script here. But I think it's a little bit better to just save this in a SharePoint location, because, for example, if I am out or if I am sick or something, or if I leave the company, then this will get, this only lives under my account instead of living in a place where others can access it. So what I usually do is I go ahead and download the script, and then I upload it to a SharePoint library. So in this case, let's call, for example, this folder script, and I will upload it here. In that way, we can call the script from this place, and we can call it, and we can update it and replace it as well, or we can just update it here directly, and that would work. And if we are using a SharePoint library, we need to use this action. If we are going to run it straight from OneDrive, we can just use the one that says run script. So that depends on what we want to do. So let's put here run script, and then it's going to ask us two things. Well, two sections. One is where's my file, and then where's the script. So the first three inputs are about the file. The last three are about the script. So workbook location, it's going to be bootcamp demos. That's how the SharePoint site is called. Then it's going to ask me what's the library, and that's going to be documents, because that's where I'm saving everything. As you can see, it's documents here. And we also have a workbook. It's going to ask me what's the workbook you want to work with. For now, I am going to leave this connected to one of the files I already have transformed. And we are going to see why in a moment. But we are going to make this dynamic in a way that it converts the file that we just received. So for now, I am going to just select one of the files that I've been working with. This one, for example, and then I'm going to select what's the script location. That means where did I upload my script. I also do it in Bootcamp demos, and then script library, it's going to be documents, and then it's going to ask me what's the script. And I will select the script from here. And this way, it's going to run my automation. And I think for now, we can save it. And we can send one sample email so we can see how it looks. So let me get one of. Okay, so let's send. Okay, I just sent it to my email, so we can just wait for a couple of minutes until the first few steps run. So after we have done this, we have the file in SharePoint, we have transformed it, and now we have the final step, which would be just getting the information that we have in the file and then putting it into the CSV format. So for that, we need to extract the information that comes in the table, because you can see that we transformed everything, and at the end, we converted everything in this inventory file. And actually, I made a mistake. Here, I just remembered something. Here, where it says workbook, I said that we were going to connect it to one of the existing files, but we cannot do that because I already transformed it. So we are going to remove this, and we have to select the lining. And here, we are going to select the identifier of the file and then save. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's going to fail if we run it as it is right now. So yeah, it failed already. So now let's just wait to save and resubmit it. But in the meantime, let's go back to Power Automate again. And then we have this table that we are creating in Excel, and we are going to read this Excel table. So for that, I will just go ahead and add a new step. And there's another Excel action that we can use to get the information from a table. In this case, it's list rows present in a table, which is the one here. So I'm going to select it. And it always asks us where is the SharePoint site that we're working with, and then the document. And then here it's going to ask us the file. And here's where we are going to, for now, select it or connect it with a file that is already transformed. It was not in the previous step. Sorry about that. So, okay, let's select one that we have been working on. And then here we have let's select the table. And you can see it's recognizing we have a table called inventory. And something really important that we also need to do is settings. We need to go to settings and enable this option that is called pagination. By default, Excel will always bring only around like 250 rows. So we're around that. And we know our files have 700, 800. So in this case, I will increase the threshold to 1000. And that way we make sure that we don't miss any row. And what this will do, it will return the whole list to us. Okay, let's see. Seems like we got an error. Let's try to open. Okay, it seems like it was not able to open the file. So let's save. And for now, and let's see what's going on. Sometimes it happens that when we create the file, this is something that happens sometimes in the modern editor, because Power Automate has two different editors. And it may be that, I think it may be related to that, because when I was testing it earlier today, we didn't have this issue. So I will copy this, and we are going to convert it to binary. So we're going to use, because when we are working with Outlook files and then we are converting them to SharePoint, they need to be in binary format. Usually the modern editor does this conversion for us, but for some reason it decided it didn't want to do it today. So let's do here base 64 to binary, and then we are just going to send the information of the file content I can just remove it from here and attachment content and then add, and I will remove this and let's save. And then let's resubmit and we'll see. Okay, yeah, this time it worked. Let's refresh. And we see that it opens the file correctly with no issues. It converted it into the format that we were working with. It had 975 rows. And the last step that we added, now if I open this, we can see that we have all the rows from the Excel file converted in the format that we needed. So now the final thing that we need to do is to convert this to CSV. And there's a pretty cool action in Power Automate that does just that. It's called CSV. So there are many CSV actions here, but the one we need is the one that comes from data operation. And then here we select create CSV file. And then it's going to ask us where we want to create the CSV from. And then the CSV is going to come from the information that we have in our in our Excel file. And then we need to select the columns section because as you remember, we need to rename our columns because they were in Spanish and now we need them in English. So this is where we are going to rename the columns. We could have done that in the Office script, but we can also do it in Excel. So we can, in Power Automate, we can use a combination of both. And here I'm going to select custom. And here's going to ask me on the left side, what's the column name that I want to assign. On the right side, it's going to ask me what's the value that I want to add. So in this case, on the header, we have a product column. Then we have category. And we have quantity. Then we have from. And then we have date. Let's copy this and paste here. And the last thing we are going to do is to map the results from the Excel document into our into our CSV action. So let's select the value. And again, we are going to use this lining icon to select information that comes from previous steps. So I'm going to click here. And you can see that this action list rows present in a table. It's returning different information from the Excel file. And here we can see all the columns. So you can see product goes here with product in Spanish. Category also goes with category. I can also use the search bar to find the information. Quantity will go with quantity, but in Spanish. And then from will go with the country. And finally, we also have the date, which is the last column that we added. So if I hit on save, and then I hit here on resubmit, let's just wait for a few seconds. And yeah, we can see here that we have gone through all the 4 steps and we run the script. We get the information from the script, which we can see here. But you can see that when we run this action to get rows from an Excel file, we have these 2 additional columns that we really don't have in our file because you can see it doesn't exist, but Power Automate or Excel still add them. So we have those 2 additional columns, but once I ran this result through the CSV table that we had in Power Automate, you can see that it just returns 4 columns for each of the rows. It doesn't look great here because you can see it's like one string all the way to the right, but you can see on this section here on the left panel we can see that this is the actual format in which we need it, with the product name, the category, the quantity, the country, and then the date. And we can see that this is all the format for the CSV. And now we have the CSV, and we can also just save it in SharePoint. So we are going to use another action that is called create file, similar to the one we already had at the beginning. So we can do create file. And again, for Automate likes to know where we need to save the information. So it's going to always ask what's the SharePoint site. So bootcamp demos, and then where we want to save it. For now, we're just going to say it's the same folder we have been working with. So let's do inventory files, and then it's going to ask us what's the file name. And I will do just the same thing we did previously, which is using the GUID action. And then add, and then .csv. And then the file content, we are just going to connect it to the CSV information. So this is one option. We can just, save it as a CSV. So create file CSV. And we can, I closed the execution. So we can use the last execution to just save it, to just rerun it. And it's going to save the CSV file in SharePoint. But we can also, for example, just save it through email. So we're going to use the send email action, which is here. And then I can just say, send these to team@powergi.net. And then we can say inventory file is ready. And then here we just need to add the attachments, and we can click on add new item. And we can just add a name. And in the content, we can always reference the results from the CSV table that comes from this purple action that we have. And then we can hit on save. I think here depends a lot on what we want to do, if we want to have it through email or if we want to just grab it from SharePoint. That depends. We can see that the file is here. And we can just use it and then upload it to the accounting system, or we can also just send it through email. If I hit on send, on resubmit, we're going to see it's also going to send it through email. And for now, let's send another file so we can just test it with another set of data. Let's see. And the final change that we're missing is this. Remember that we initially selected the file directly from the folder selector. That was because that was going to make the process of mapping the columns easier, because you remember that we only selected them. But in this case, we need this information to come dynamically from the file that we selected. So I will just remove this, click on the aligning icon, and here we are going to select the ID of the file, and this is what's going to make it dynamic. Once we do that, the table attribute will kind of break. As you can see, it used to say inventory, but now it's just like a bunch of numbers and text. So we need to remove that, and we can just manually write inventory. And that way we know that it's going to always grab the inventory table name. In this case, it's really important that the table name is exactly the same as we have it here. If we know we have renamed it, we have to use the final name. If we know we don't rename it, we need to use table 1 or table 2 or whatever name it always has. So that's what I always suggest that we use, that we always rename our tables. That way we know what's the column name from Power Automate. So let's say And here you can see this is my CSV file that I just downloaded, and you can see it's working well. It's exactly doing what we wanted it to do. And now I just sent a new email, and we just need to wait for the last one to come. And here we're going to see everything is going to be dynamic once it runs for the new file that I just submitted, which has a different number of rows. So, and I also have the CSV in my email in case we would also like that. I guess it depends on what we want the process to do, either CSV or saving it in SharePoint. That depends on the final process that we want. So let's just wait until I receive the new email to see this dynamic part that we just updated, and then we're gonna see it working. I still haven't received, yeah, it's here. This is the one that I just sent to myself, and we just need to wait for it to run, and let's see the results. Okay, seems like it's ready. If I order from newer to older, we see that we have the Excel file here, which is the one we transformed. And then we have the CSV here, and I should also have received it in my email. If I see here, this is the subject that we defined, and I also have the CSV attached. And next time, whenever we receive this email, now it is going to automatically go through Power Automate. It's going to be automatically transformed and then converted through CSV. So, I could be drinking my coffee while this automation is working on the backend, and then I will just receive the file instead of manually downloading and then running a macro or doing it manually. So that was everything I had for today. I'm not sure if there's any question, or if there's not, then that's it for me. Thank you so much for attending, and I hope that this gave you some ideas on how you can start using Power Automate and Office scripts to automate some tasks.